Hi, Ask an RTC here, and in this video, we'll be going over important information that you should know when joining the Navy. Now, a lot of this information is going to be gone over with you with your recruiter, but these are things that, even though they were told to me, were very big cultural shocks for me. But after being in the Navy for a while, it actually becomes more of your daily routine. The first topic is watch and duty days. Now, when you check into a command, whether it be a ship or a building, you're going to be assigned a duty section. Now, duty sections could be anywhere between 1 and 6, 1 and 4, 1 and 8. It really depends on the size of the command. But what that means is that let's say if you're in a 6-section duty, that means what section you're in every 6 days, you're going to have a duty day. Now, if you're assigned to a ship, most likely, unless the ship has special situation, that means that when you check in that day for work, so whether it's a Monday, you come in Monday and it's your duty day, you are going to muster with your duty section, and you're not going to be able to go home until after the next day. Whether that be the next day, for example, if it's a Friday and then you go into a Saturday, then of course you'll be able to go home after that morning of a Saturday after you turn over. But if it's a Monday and you turn over on a Tuesday, if that's a work day, not a holiday or anything, then you're going to have to also do work that day before you can go home. And that is if you live ashore. If you're living on the ship, that just means you don't get liberty, which is your ability to go out in town and such until your duty day is over. Now, while on duty, what you're going to do is stand watch. So on top of your normal work that you have to do for that day, if it is a work day, you're going to have to stand a watch. Now, you may see on ships people who maybe are holding weapons, or maybe they're just in a dress uniform and they're standing at where the brow is, which is where the ship is connected to land, and they're checking IDs, saluting people aboard, making sure that nothing crazy is happening. Those are some examples of watch. Underway, you're also going to have a watch, which brings us into the next topic of getting underway. Now, getting underway is whenever time while assigned to a ship, it leaves the pier, it leaves the dock, it goes out into the ocean. It actually happens more than just deployment, which is something I wasn't really told. My understanding was you only get into the water with your ship whenever you're going on deployment, which, yes, you are, and those are the long underways. There's also a lot of short underways that you're going to be experiencing. There's going to be times where you're going to get underway on a Monday and come back on a Friday. You might get underway and that morning and then come back that night, or the really fun ones that everyone talks about is getting underway on Friday and coming back on Monday and continuing the work week and not having your weekend. But that's sometimes that happens. There's also times where you call fast cruises, which means that everyone is on board the ship. The ship does not get underway, but you stay on board for a certain amount of time, whether it be that for a day or a week. It really depends on the situation, but usually what they do is they have a fast cruise. If you're going to get underway for a really big operation and you're going to get underway on a Thursday, they'll fast cruise on Wednesday so that everyone's on board and ready to go Thursday to get the ship underway. Now, like I said before, you're going to be standing watch on your duty days. But when you're underway, usually duty day is your every day. Your watch is kind of part of your daily routine, Monday through Sunday. A watch can be anything from a bridge watch stander, which is looking out, or someone who drives the ship. You're rotating off who drives the ship. Or you could be in the Combat Information Center looking at radar screens. If you're in engineering, you're going to be doing rows and tours to make sure, taking gauge calculations to make sure everything's right. It really depends on what your job is in the Navy, and that's going to decide what you're going to do underway and how to support and know what to stand watch, because we're all going to man the ship 24/7 at that point. Now, all of this sounds like a lot of work, and it is. And underways, even though you're standing watch and doing work and you're going to be working 7 days a week where you're underway, it's a little more relaxed style where there isn't the urge to try to go home all the time. So as long as you're getting your work done, it actually ends up being quite a pleasant experience. But that also brings into our next topic, which is the work hours. Now, usually you're going to work Monday through Friday and have weekends off, unless you're underway, and that's a different situation. But while your ship is in port or you work at a shore command working in a building, you're usually going to work Monday through Friday. The only difference would be if you had a duty day on a weekend, then obviously you're going to work Monday through Friday plus your duty day, whether it be Sunday or Saturday. This also includes duty days over holidays. Sadly, someone's going to have to take that duty on Christmas, so which I have had plenty of times, but it's okay. Usually you can rotate off, or if you have really big plans, you can usually ask someone to duty swap with you, where you take their duty day and they take yours. But that's all planned out in the future for someone to help you out. But that means that you could be working 6 days a week, or 7 days a week, 5 days a week. If it's a 3-day weekend because there's a federal holiday, then 4 days a week. Usually you're going to arrive around 6:30 to 7, and then you have quarters at 7:15, which is you get with your division and muster and talk about the plan of the day, and then go out and execute it. Usually you get off around 1600. Some days you're going to have to stay longer and stay until 1800 or 2000, which is 8 o'clock at night. And other times you have what we like to call Aloha Fridays. Aloha being hello and goodbye means you show up, you maybe muster, and you get to go home. Those really don't happen too often. They're usually given to more so as a reward and on Fridays. But you're going to expect yourself to be working anywhere between 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon or 1600. What you have to keep in mind is we are not paid by the hour. We are paid salary. So that means we get paid the same whether we show up to work at all or we stay and do a 20-hour day. So if there's work to be done, there's not going to be any confusion or argument whether or not you're going to have to stay late to make sure the work gets done. But that's why you work hard throughout the week to make sure that you don't have any maintenance or anything scheduled that you need to take care of, so that Fridays could be usually an easy day. But that's up to your command, and that's how your leadership wants to handle that. The next thing I want to talk about, which is something that most people haven't really experienced in life, I never experienced in life until I actually did it with the Navy, is moving. Now, it may not seem like a big deal if you've already moved, but what you got to understand is in the military, you actually move quite a lot. At least in my opinion, I seem to have moved a lot. I think I moved about 7 times now. And that's just because I had some short commands where I had to go to a different geographical location. And if you're single, it's really not that big of a deal because you're just going to take you and your stuff and go somewhere. It's still kind of a hassle, but that's part of the job. What makes it more impactful is if you have a family, if you have a spouse and kids like that, and you have a household and you're moving all your stuff, it ends up being a whole event and cumbersome, but it's part of the job. You're going to end up going to different commands. You're going to end up moving different places all around the world, and which is pretty exciting, but it's still the idea of just constantly moving either every year or every 5 years. It really depends on your situation. But in general, you're going to move every time you move a command. And for the most people, rotation of commands is your first command at sea is 5 years, and then you go to a short command at 3, then 5, then 3, then 4, then 3, and it keeps rotating. And some places change, but that would be a normal rotation, not to include if you had to go to a school. So if you end up going to a school, then you go to a command, then you go to your shore duty. Right there, in 5 years, you have just moved 4 times. So it could be a lot, but the Navy has a lot of programs, and also they give you extra money to move, or you can hire movers through the Navy to move your stuff. So there's definitely ways to make it a lot simpler, but than just normal moving yourself out in the civilian world. But it's still a big event, and that's something that I just never really thought of as like, wow, I'm going to be moving a lot. So that's also something to keep in mind. With that being said, if you're living at home or you're not, regardless on deployment or underways or duty days, you are going to have a rack assigned to you on a ship. Now, you've seen probably a lot of pictures and movies and videos, but what I had right in front of you is a good example of a rack that has an open space and a rack that is standard here that you're going to see in most places. These things are back to back. They're small. They're called coffin racks. And we have these little straps that go on the edge to close up, and a privacy curtain, so that way when the ship rocks, you don't fall out. As you can see, there's little red handles there. You lift that up, and you can put all your stuff inside there. It actually holds quite a lot. You usually also get a stand-up locker, and then also in most places, at least for me in my workspace, we usually had lockers there too, so you can put more stuff, and we usually had corners where we would secure things while we were underway, because if the ship rocks and stuff moves, that's bad, so you secure it by tying it down. So you can bring a little bit more stuff, especially on deployment. Usually at home port, I would only bring aboard with me stuff just to shower on my duty days so I can have clean clothes and clean uniforms the next day. But on deployments, obviously, you're going to have to bring a lot more, so when you go out in Liberty, when you go to port visits. But this is something that you're going to have losing a lot of privacy, and you're not going to have too much space. But that's because you're on a warship, you're not on a cruise liner. So that's something to get used to. Also is the galley food. You're not really going to be able to choose what you want. There are going to be choices in front of you, kind of like on a school cafeteria when they make multiple things and you choose what you want. And they mix it up somewhat, but it gets pretty repetitive. But usually there's always a healthy choice, and then like I would say an unhealthy choice that's more flavorful. Like you can have grilled chicken or fried chicken. It's really up to you to make the proper decisions and choices. You're not going to really be able to cook your own food. You can't have hot plates on the ship, so you are going to be eating on deployment and on duty days what the food the ship has for you. Although on home port and duty days, usually you could have like pizza delivered to you if you're really not feeling the galley food. But you are going to be paying for this food out of your paycheck, whether you eat it or not. So it's probably a better idea just to eat the food. But there are always healthy choices and different flavors and whatnot. That also brings to the idea of living on board a ship, how the what we call P-ways or passageways. It's hallways. It's how you go from one door to another, right? But in the ship, we call it passageways or P-ways for short. As you can see in this picture, it's really narrow. All this stuff hanging down. I'm 6'1", and sometimes I bump my head on some of that stuff. Everything's external on a ship, so you just kind of have to be careful. And whenever you pass someone, you're definitely going to do the whole sideways thing, getting by them. So they're never run in P-ways. Everyone always says don't run in P-ways. And you might hear that at boot camp a lot. That's because it's getting in your head that if you run on a ship in a P-way, you're probably going to catch something. As you can see, everything's sticking out here. Everything's external. There's no drywall. There's no overhead tiles because everything needs to be exposed so we can fix it if it's broken. You're going to catch something and you're going to get hurt, which I have seen someone do before. So just keep that in mind as well. It's also one of those like natural things that you're like, oh, it's kind of encumbersome and when you walk through it. And that is going to be the end of this video, talking about things I kind of wish I knew or better understood when joining the Navy that were more of a culture shock to me. So if you have any more questions about more daily life on board a ship, things you should know when going to boot camp or going to your first command, leave them down in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer them, and I'm sure anyone else that watches these videos that are in the Navy will be happy to help you as well. HOOYAH Navy.